Good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce you to Michael Johnson, the Deputy Chief of Collections here at Enoch Pratt Free Library and the Maryland State Library Resource Center.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it. So welcome everybody to day 2 of the Sailor E-Resource Symposium. I think we had 3 great sessions yesterday, and I'm really looking forward to day 2. And as Paul mentioned, we're our part 2 of our AI series for this conference. I think it's going to be a really good day. We got 2 great sessions today. As I said, we'll start with a session on AI tools and some of their practical uses in libraries, and then follow that up at 1 p.m. with Libraries Lifting Lives, resources for job and career help. And that'll be presented by Emily Sachs, the workforce strategist for the Neighborhood Library Services Division of Pratt Library. And that'll close out the open sessions for the symposium. We'll also have a closed session for our MPearls group, where we'll work on the renewal process, begin talking about the renewal process for the Sailor databases that I spoke a little bit about yesterday. So I think we've got a great day planned up, and 2 great sessions coming up for you all. And I want to go ahead and introduce Laura Solomon. She is the Library Services Manager for the Ohio Public Library Information Network and a W3C certified front-end web developer. She has been doing web development and design for more than 20 years in both public libraries and as an independent consultant. She specializes in developing with Drupal. She is a 2010 Library Journal mover and shaker. She's written 3 books about social media and content marketing, specifically for libraries, and speaks internationally on both these and technology-related topics. As former children's librarian, she enjoys bringing the fun of technology to audiences and in giving libraries the tools they need to better serve the virtual customer. So Laura, welcome. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. I'm coming to you today from the north. I am just south of Cleveland, Ohio, and so our weather is a little different here, but I'm probably not too different than you folks today. But I live on what's called the North Coast, so we are one of 4 places in the world that gets lake effect snow, which is to say it's awful. I love Cleveland. I don't love the weather. You folks have it much better. My parents used to live in Baltimore, so I have a little bit of a clue of what that's like. I think that the folks here are going to give me the ability to share out my screen. I've already got it, so give me just a second to get that moving. And let's get this underway. There we go. So hopefully you're seeing a colorful screen to introduce things here. And I'm going to apologize to Imari in advance because I am a fast talker. So I'm going to be putting her through her paces today, probably. So I'm sorry about that. I will try to slow it down a little bit. One of the things that I love to do is to kind of engage with all of you directly as I'm going through. So you do not have to wait until the end of the session if you'd like to ask questions. And I just realized I've got my camera on, so hang on a second. I'm going to stop my video. And the reason I do that is because I do live near an urban area, but I actually live in the next county over. And our internet here is supposedly okay, but I have discovered, unfortunately, through experience, because I live in a more rural area, especially when I start sharing video, and I need to do that as part of my presentation today, that things can get a little dicey. So you've seen that I do exist. I am not an AI, so hopefully you can live for the next little bit of time without actually seeing me. But if you'd like to ask anything directly, you do not have to wait till the end. Please go ahead and put that in the Q&A, and I will be keeping an eye on that, as well as the hosts here. They'll be taking care of that as well. So here's what we're going to be looking at today in kind of broad strokes. So the very first thing that I'm going to cover is probably not what you were expecting. And I really do enjoy telling people about the neat things that I have found or I have used. But unfortunately, with this particular category of tools, I need to give you some heads up because there's some things you need to know so that your eyes are wide open when you start playing with these things. So I'm going to cover those so you are not getting any nasty surprises down the road. Obviously, we're going to be covering AI tools. And so I want to show you some neat things, or maybe not so neat things, depending on your point of view, that are out there now that you can probably use in your libraries or at least experiment with to some extent. And I don't know, because I wasn't here yesterday, I don't know what Jason Griffey covered, but I've got some things that at least when I saw them kind of blew me out of the water. And so I'm going to show you those. And these are things that, yes, you could be using in your library. These are not speculative things. And then lastly, time allowing, I want to show you some sources that you can use to keep up with all of this. And even if we don't get to that, all of the information will be in the slides, which I think you folks are getting a copy of, and maybe my host here can verify that. But that will have the information as well. But if we have time, I'd love to kind of go through that with you because I think some of it is really interesting. Okay, so let's start with this. And I know that many of you were here yesterday for Jason's presentation, so I'm not going to spend too much time here. But we do need to recognize going into all of this that we are in the middle of an AI revolution. I'm sure that every time you turn around, you feel like you're seeing AI, it's everywhere, it's in everything. I was just teaching a session on emerging tech just a week or so ago, and I was talking about smart glasses that are now enabled with ChatGPT. I actually have an optometrist appointment later today, and I'm going to take my prescription, walk out the door, and go order a pair because I want one of these, not just because of ChatGPT, but because it does all kinds of other things. But the world has changed, right? And it hasn't been that long since it changed. Really, we're talking about less than a year. I think ChatGPT was released last November. It's kind of crazy. And so now we're seeing all kinds of things, and I'm sure Jason probably at least talked about, if not showed some of these things, but it's a lot to take in. And so we have to think about all kinds of things now. How could AI-powered tools affect how we live our lives daily? Like, what is my life going to be like once I have an AI-powered set of smart glasses? It could potentially, probably will affect our daily routines at some point. And then there's the bigger, more existential questions like, is AI coming for our jobs? Is AI going to kill us? Will Skynet be appearing at any point in the near future? We're wrestling with all of this. And in many realms right now, AI is kind of like a big playground. There's so much out there that looks interesting and cool, and a lot of places, especially in business, probably some of the more ethical questions aren't really being addressed. And some of them are just really, really big. Even legislators are having trouble keeping up with all of that. We don't know what the rules are now. So we're just trying to make sense of it. The world, obviously, we know it's different. But why is this so different, this particular wave of AI models? Because AI existed before ChatGPT. This is not a new thing. If any of you have ever used a tool called remove.bg, which is fabulous, by the way, and that's the URL, remove.bg, it actually uses AI to very cleverly remove the backgrounds of images, and there's no cost to that one. I've used it for at least a couple years. So that's the idea of AI isn't new, but ChatGPT is doing something different. Because in the past, AI models generally only mastered single tasks, like recognizing handwritten numbers or removing the background from some kind of image. But now we have these powerhouses that are trained on a big, broad spectrum of data, and their adaptability it doesn't really just stop there. They can also be fine-tuned for specific tasks. So whereas in the past, AI could do very specific things, now it can do very specific things and adapt to a whole bunch of other things. And so the development world for AI is thriving, which is why there are so many things out there right now. And what I'm going to be covering today barely even constitutes the tip of the iceberg. When I talk about sources, I'm overwhelmed daily, and I drink from the fire hose of new tech because I work in tech all the time on the regular. I am constantly dealing with being overwhelmed. And even I feel like I am sinking under the weight of everything that's happening in AI. So one of my goals today is to show you some things that you can play with, that you can experiment with, maybe use practically, that hopefully will not overwhelm you in this space of potential overwhelm. So we are here because AI stormed into our lives barely a year ago, and now it seems like it's absolutely everywhere. Even our Google searches are AI enabled. I'm sure many of you have played with ChatGPT, maybe with Bard or Claude, and there's a whole lot of really big kind of mainstream competitors like that out there. And chances are, I think you've probably played with one of those. And we've heard so much about ChatGPT since last fall. And of course, it has an even more powerful version, ChatGPT 4, which is paid. There's lots of competitors like Microsoft's Bing Chat, Google's Bard, which is going to be renamed to Gemini. Meta has one called Llama 2, which is actually going to be, I think, more open source than some of the competitors. But there's so much attention being paid now to these big AIs or large language models like that I think some of these smaller applications get lost in the shuffle. And even though they're smaller in scope, they've evolved from these bigger models to do more fine-tuned tasks. But for our purposes in libraries, I think some of these probably make more sense. So it's very easy to get very excited about these, especially as I show you some of the things that these can do. And I want you to be excited by those. That's half the reason I'm probably here today. But I also want you to take all of this with perhaps a significantly sized block of salt, because there are always the buts, right? There's always a catch. And I want to go over some of those for you to look for, as not only as you're looking at these tools, but also as you're looking at other tools that I'm not talking about today. And this is probably the most accurate one, or I shouldn't say the most accurate, the most commonly known one. I don't know why I said accurate because it's on my screen, but it is, I guess it is about accuracy. So most of you have probably heard the phrase AI can hallucinate, or some variation of that. And maybe even Jason talked about this. It's a very well-known problem in AI. And when we use that phrase or that term hallucinate in reference to AI, what we're really saying is it makes stuff up, which is very concerning. And it's easy to think that that only applies to, let's say, asking ChatGPT or its brethren some kind of question or trying to get an answer to something. But that doesn't apply only to those bigger models. It can also apply to some smaller things where it's just sort of going, I don't know, but I'm really good at making things up, and that's what it does. And sometimes it can be really hard to tell the difference. Most of the tools I'm going to be showing you today, this isn't so much of an issue because they're not necessarily creating new information for you, but it's also something that you do need to be aware of with any AI tool. You also need to be aware of how good your prompts are, because virtually all these tools involve you putting in some kind of information, your prompt, and saying, this is what I want to know, or more specifically, in most of the things I'm talking about today, here's what I want to do. So this is a factor that plays into much of what could be considered successful AI tool use, because if your prompts are not very good, garbage in, garbage out. I mean, that's always applied to computer programming for years and years. It also applies to AI tools. Most of you are probably also aware of the idea of prompt engineers. There's been a lot in the news fairly recently about this. People make big bucks basically writing good prompts for AI because they know how to add details in a way or phrase things in a way that an AI can understand, and the result is going to be better. So it's very easy also to think, oh, this tool is terrible, but if your prompt isn't very good, yes, the tool is going to be terrible. It does take two. Another thing to remember is that all of these tools are basically in beta. That they may not say it, although many do. These are all in beta, meaning they're not necessarily finished products in the sense of like it works perfectly. Just the fact they use AI makes that moot. Of course, they don't work perfectly as long as they use AI in the state that AI is in right now. AI tools are, for the most part, less than a year old. So in essence, we're all guinea pigs. Keep this in mind that you may not get the results you want all the time. So we are part of this grand experiment. This is a big one, and that is pricing. Many, but not all of the tools that I'll be showing you today have, at least for now, a free tier of some kind, or a free trial that you can use to at least get an idea of whether it will work for you and or your library. But there's no guarantee that any of these will not monetize at some point in the future. So free for now. I can't guarantee that none of these are going to start charging at some point. To be honest, there are more AI tools right now charging fees than free. So this is a trend you should expect to see continue because, of course, if you can make money, why wouldn't you? And that's what these developers are doing. The good news is that if you find one or more of these to be really useful for you, the monthly fees for the majority of AI tools tend to be pretty minimal, even for smaller libraries. So if your favorite, it does require some money to get the full use of it, or becomes no longer free, it might not be too much of a burden for your library. And by the way, if you're looking at this picture of the calculator and you're wondering why the buttons are kind of all crazy, all of the images that I have put into this first section of my presentation were actually created by a tool called Viewtopia. And just in case you want to play with it, it is a competitor to Midjourney. For those of you who are familiar with Midjourney, it is pretty much free, which is very appealing, but it does also not do things perfectly. Whether or not that's a result of my prompt, I don't know. My suspicion is not in this case, because it actually came up with pretty much what I wanted it to, but the definition could definitely use some help on this picture. And Megan asked, will you be talking about the ethics of AI art today? I will not, because I just don't have time. My focus is on tools, and I'm hoping that some of that might have been covered yesterday with Jason, but there's definitely some ethical things that need to be considered here. Another thing to consider is that features may be limited because the free tier on most of these don't have nearly the abilities that paid versions do. And that's not new for us, right? We're used to that with a lot of things online. You get what's called a freemium version sometimes, where you get free things, but if you want to pay for more, you're going to get more. In the past, when I've done webinars and workshops about tools online that are not AI driven, that often wasn't the case. There were a whole lot, and still are, a whole lot of online tools that were either totally free or the free tier was comprehensive enough for most people's needs. And we're seeing a huge shift here as the majority of companies and developers producing these tools are working very hard to monetize those efforts. And unfortunately, that's a shift we don't have control over. And I want to point this out as a way to manage expectations early on. Things are not the way they were. So my focus today is to introduce you to the world of possibilities and to some of the more interesting AI applications that are becoming available that you can use as well or experiment with. So what are we going to be looking at? A whole bunch of things that I think are pretty nifty for usually more than one reason. If you have any experience with these, please put those experiences into the chat. I am popping back and forth between Q&A and the chat, and I know hosts will help me out here if need be. So if you have any experiences or comments because you've seen or used one of these tools, share, because some of the best information can come not just from the people who are, person in this case, rambling at you for an hour or so, but also from people who have more some more practical experiences with it. Okay, just checking the chat. So onwards. So here's the first one I want to share. This one is called Murph.ai. If you haven't already looked at things like this, you may notice that many tools do end with the .ai domain, which actually belongs to a country. And I'm sorry, I don't remember which it is, but I read somewhere that that country is now making a ton of money because all these developers want that domain extension for their tools, which is kind of interesting and maybe good for that country. But Murph.ai is really neat in terms of reading things aloud and from scripts. So as it says there on your screen, make studio quality voiceovers in minutes. So let me give you some demos here. So this is one of their demos, not something that I made. I'll show you something in a minute that I made, but this is one of the things they use to demo, and they have different voices that you can have your stuff read in. So I picked author because of course libraries had to pick that one, but there are other voices you can use. So I'm going to go ahead and play this for you.
Like the plague that swept across the north, wherever the modern man came in contact with the native people, great numbers eventually died. Several communicable diseases, such as measles and chicken pox, wiped out whole tribes and villages.
So that was really interesting to me. I mean, I've almost become blasé to some extent about what some of these tools can do now, and maybe you have also. What's interesting to me, though, about this kind of tool and about Murph is that it actually gets the intonations pretty good, considering that it's not human. You think back to voices that we had less than a year ago, it was pretty easy to tell that those were not human, and the intonation and the emphasis on certain words wasn't what you would expect from a human being. We've now seemed to have made it over that hurdle to some extent. So let me show you another thing from Murph. This is something that I did, so you can see what it would be like when I put in some text and have it read in another voice.
Like the plague that...
Come on. There we go. Okay, so this is a little bit of text, just a little bit, and you can see I had it read in this this voice they call Ken. And notice also that you can adjust this to some extent. You'll see up there that you can change the pitch, the speed, you can add pause, you can even change the style. I went with the default just because I wanted to see what it would sound like. So I wanted you also to get the default. So here we go.
Hi, my name is Laura Solomon. I'm not really a middle-aged male, but this tool allows me to sound like one. It's amazing to think that we now have a tool that can make our marketing sound better.
So just enough to get the idea. And if you paid attention, you noticed it did kind of stumble with intonation / emphasis in one place, but still pretty good. And honestly, that voice is probably better than mine for voiceovers. I know that I am not cut out for voiceover work. So this would be really interesting to use in library marketing. And I know someone had a question about ethical uses of AI art, and I think there's a lot to discuss there. I think what's interesting to me, at least, about this is that it doesn't have that issue because you are putting in the content, it's simply reading it aloud with different voices. So you might wonder, okay, Laura, this is really cool. How much does this cost? Well, unfortunately, Murph does not have a free tier. It does have a free trial, but it does not have a free tier where you get general services. So you might have noticed that the text that I put into Murph was pretty short. And the reason for that is because I think their trial is like 10 seconds or so of reading out loud. It's not very much. And this is not one of the tools that my agency has decided to purchase, so I couldn't experiment more, but I do think it's very interesting. So you can see that you can experiment with it. Oh, 10 minutes, can't talk today, I'm sorry. 10 minutes of voice generation. I just looked at the screen of my screenshot there. I was saying 10 seconds, it's 10 minutes. So this is something that you can play with if you want to see what a voiceover might be like if you're making training tutorials for your library or any kind of promotional things, maybe for online like social media. This is copy.ai. And when I first saw this, I did not think, ooh, this looks exciting. I mean, honestly, when I look at this front screen here, their homepage, it does not look exciting, especially when you look at some other tools. But what I discovered is that there's a lot of uses for this. And I think particularly in libraries, especially folks, if you are a social media manager or you have to write copy for anything, you're going to like this. This can be really helpful for content creators because it can help a user write Instagram captions and blog posts and program descriptions and a whole lot of other things. So you literally just have to say, hey, write this, and it does, and then you can copy it. So it's an AI-based copywriting tool that generates unique content for you that you can post on social media, your blog, wherever it is you need that copy to go, on just a short description of the topic that you want to have something written on. So here you can see part of the user interface and some of the different things that are available there. One of the more interesting features of Copy AI is that it has a prompt library. I haven't seen other tools, at least yet, that have this. I think this is kind of a neat thing. So a prompt library allows you to use use prompts that have already been written, that are already part of their system, and you can modify those if you want, I think. So the nice part is that you have something to start with. You're not starting from scratch. And sometimes it just gives you a good idea of what is possible for this. So for those of you who are doing something where you need to be writing things, you can see over to the left, you've got an option for email marketing, social media, all kinds of things over there, some of which are probably not relevant to libraries, but some that are. So here's where I decided I was going to start experimenting with copy.ai. I asked it to write 5 different variations of Instagram captions. One of the things that my agency that I work for in Ohio does is we are sort of the mediators for all things E-rate. I don't know if that's something you folks have in Maryland, but it allows us basically to get money from the government because we provide all of the broadband internet for libraries in Ohio. But it's very complex to get that information all taken care of. It's part of the reason that it's part of what our agency does. So I asked it to write this and to see what it would come up with. And so you can see I gave it just a little bit, and it started out with an outline, and it added some additional options that I might want for this. I'm trying to get it to change. There we go. So here's where it came up with the outline for this. And I didn't write this. So this is something that copy.ai did. You saw what I gave it. It started with, hey, here's an outline of everything I'm going to write about. And I thought, well, this is way better than I probably would have done. And my experience with most AI tools, but not all, is that often they do better than I would. I can give them a little bit and they take off and run with it, which is kind of scary to me. But here is part of what it came up with. Remember, I asked it to do 5. I can only show 3 on the screen. So here are the Instagram captions about the E-rate program that it came up with. And I'm trying to move my interface around here for Zoom just a second here. So you can see one of the things that it did is in my original prompt, I asked it to use emojis, but I'm not sure that I asked it to use this many emojis. It does seem a little excessive. So probably if I was going to do this again, I might qualify that in the prompt a little bit, or I could just copy this and then take out the emojis that I don't want. I also thought it was interesting that it understood that because it's Instagram, that hashtags are really important. So it had made an attempt to create some hashtags. It does not do what I would prefer, which is to basically take trending hashtags and use those, but there's nothing wrong with adding in new ones as well. So probably that's something I would have to go in and do manually. This still reduced my time tremendously in terms of coming up with this content. Another thing that copy.ai does, which this one kind of made me antsy, and you can tell me maybe in the chat how you feel about this. But one of the things that copy.ai does is it will write things in your voice. So for example, for libraries that have taken the step of creating a style guide for writing, in terms of we have a very conversational voice, or we have a very professional voice, or something like that, that your library uses to create copy, you can take something that's written in that voice, like maybe a blog post or a program description, whatever it is, you plug it in here, it will analyze it, and then it will write everything subsequently in that brand voice. That's pretty nifty. You can tell me what you think about that. Is that creepy? Is it not creepy? Would you find that useful? Let me know in the chat, because I'm always interested to know how people feel about some of these things. To me, this seems very useful, but it also sort of heads into that uncanny, I really can't talk, uncanny valley territory. Let me know in the chat. I'm always interested, and I am keeping an eye on the chat. Totally creepy, like a Black Mirror episode, says Emily. So probably not something you'd want to use, I'm guessing. And that's perfectly okay. You are not obligated to use any of this. This is to expose you to what's currently out there. And if it's not something you're comfortable with, don't do it. That's easy, easy to do, is to avoid it. So you could absolutely use copy AI and not use this feature. I didn't, because I wanted to see kind of what the baseline was. But when I saw this, I thought, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Someone else says this could really save time for those of us who don't have a lot. Cynthia says, I could see using this when in a big time crunch. Yeah, exactly. I think about how long it would have taken me to write from scratch 5 complete Instagram captions, and it would have been longer than how long it took for Copy AI to do it. Now, Copy AI does have a free tier, and it is one of the things it says here. I haven't seen anywhere else, at least yet. There's probably thousands and thousands of tools at this point. But if you look down there where it says get started for free, just over that, it says free forever. Every other tool that I've looked at says free or some variation of free. None of them except this one has said free forever, meaning they're actually committing to keeping it free. No other tool I've seen is willing to do that. Now, it is limited. It does have a 2,000 word in chat limit. So this is not going to write everything. That's not a limit, I should say, on how much it writes. That's on how much you tell it to write. So once you hit 2,000 words in that area where you're going to give it the prompts, you're done. You've used up your free tier. So it's free for a little while, but it might be worth it for you. You know, again, you have to decide what is worth it for you. And this may not be the tool for you to begin with, as I think Emily was talking about, at least with the brand voice. So again, we're seeing those limitations in terms of price. I wish I could tell you that everything is happy and free like the old internet used to be. Unfortunately, I'm not able to do that. This next tool is, I think, great for libraries. And when I've talked about this with library folks before, this often gets a lot of attention. This is it can be used on the web, so you can use this on a browser, but it actually works way better as an app. And as you can see there, you can get it either Google Play or the App Store. But what it provides are summaries based on books. And so it's called Snackz, SNACKZ.ai. Now I'm wondering if I have any URLs today that don't end in .ai. I'll have to see as we go through this. So this is kind of a brief look at the categories that Snackz uses. And as you can see here, they're all nonfiction. So if you were hoping for, summaries of all of James Patterson's books, this is not going to be the tool for you. But it is for a lot of nonfiction. Again, and not even all of that. This is a fairly new thing. It will probably end up with more. But remember, all of these are in beta. So remember, us guinea pigs. So not everything you might wish for is going to be here, but it's a really neat idea, and you may find what you're looking for. So let me show you something else about Snackz. This is what it will look like if you scroll through one of their summaries. I just used there you go. So just a little bit there. There it goes, it repeats. So you can see kind of what it looks like, but this is again on the web. This is in a browser. This is not what it would look like on the app. So I wanted to show you what this looks like on the app as opposed to the web. So you can see over there, it has this really nice kind of breakdown of what's in it. On the app, you seem to get a better division of content. It also has the ability to read it out loud, which is really handy. You can also mark a particular book's listing as finished, so you have kind of your own stored reading record. So again, not every book is going to be here, but for those that are, there's a fair amount of functionality here on Snackz, and you can be listening on your phone. Kind of nifty there. The next one I want to show you, this is Descript.com, and you're seeing just a few things that it can do there. I'm going to talk about some of those. So when you go to Descript.com and you click on features, what you get is this. And Kimberly says, seems what the Headway app does. So I'm not familiar with the Headway app, Kimberly. And Sean says, I mean, the voiceover app replaces hiring an actor, not very different from using it to illustrate a book. And the book summary one is likely scraping the text to summarize without copyright. This all seems kind of sketchy. So I won't argue with that at all, because I don't make any commission from any of these tools. These do provide some functionality that may or may not be helpful to you. The idea is to show you what's out there. If you're not comfortable using it, don't use it. So the book summary one is absolutely scraping. There's no doubt about it. And it's probably scraping primarily public domain text. But I'm not sure about that entirely, because I saw at least one thing there from Brene Brown, and I'm pretty sure that's not public domain. And so this is an issue that AI has for sure. I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not here today to talk about AI ethics, which is probably, I think, disappointing to some extent. I think that we could spend a lot of time on that, and it probably rightly so deserves that kind of time. Unfortunately, I can't do that today. When I first looked at Descript.ai at the features, this is what I saw, and I was not excited by this initially. This list seemed kind of average, but when you start playing with Descript, you also start to realize just how powerful many of these features actually are. So I want to talk about some of these because it does a lot. And again, with your content. So Sean brings up some points about copyright, and I think that's fair. But this is, let me scroll back here, things that it can do. So first, you can invite other people to be on a team with you, which is not something that all of these tools do. And Megan says AI is so new that there's no proper laws or rules around how it harvests, but there are cases in the works to do just that. And Megan is correct. This is, remember how I said we are the guinea pigs, and legislators can't keep up with this, at least not yet, maybe ever. The EU just passed their first legislation around AI last week. So this is all new. Whether or not you want to use something that does something you're not comfortable with, there's absolutely things that need to be talked about there. Case in point, my agency just bought for the first time a subscription to an AI tool, which I'm not sure I'll have time to demo today, but it creates videos from text prompts. And one of the things that we have to do as a state agency is that we have to query the provider about how they train their large language model and whether or not they have licensing for all of the stuff that they are training that model on. That's the requirement of the state of Ohio. So they do have something specific that we have to follow. So I contacted this provider that had this tool that created video from text, and I asked them, how are you training this? I work for the state of Ohio. We need to know this. And the response I kept getting back was basically along the lines of, we're so sorry, we can't tell you that, it's proprietary. And when you think about it, that's not surprising. They're monetizing these products, and it's just like anything else. It's an industry secret. They're not going to tell you how it's trained. Now, the question about whether or not all of that content is licensed, that's another thing to consider. Now, in this case, they told me that yes, it's all licensed. And because of the nature of the tool, I know that's right, because first of all, I'm the one putting in the text. Secondly, the video clips and images that you're able to put into there are licensed through either Storyblock or Shutterstock, I think. So that is another thing that I know. So I can say to the state, hey, yes, it meets all the criteria. But if I couldn't get that information, probably could not buy a subscription to it as a state agency. And Megan's got some interesting things there in the chat too that I encourage you to check out. She's not derailing me. You're not derailing me, Megan. But she is saying AI is, she said that artists and coders have developed a filter for their artwork that quote unquote poisons or corrupts the data behind it if it's harvested by AI generators. And that is really important. That came out just less than a month ago. Either this week or late last week, Meta just said that they are going to basically mark in some way anything that's AI created. This is all a work in progress, absolutely, and we are in the middle of it as the guinea pig. This particular tool, Descript.com, works on both browser, or there's a desktop version that you can download. With the voice to text, which we saw, this is voice to text, not the other way around, which is what we saw with Murph. This is voice to text. You can drag and drop a file in, or you can record directly from your computer's mic and webcam mic if you have one. And you can also tell it what language is being used. And there are over 20 to choose from. So that's something that not all of these kinds of tools have, is an international option. So that's kind of nifty here. One of the other things that it can do that I really want to try is it can remove filler words like and I know I say those way too often, and I would be very happy to have something remove that. Unfortunately, not in real time. That's what I really need, is for it to do this in real time. But it not only removes those words from your audio, but it also has a way to smooth it over so you can't even tell it was removed. One of the other neat things about Descript is that it has really good tutorials. This is not something, again, just to compare it to other tools, not something that every tool has. Sometimes you're on your own. It's like, ta-da, here you are, good luck. That is not the case with Descript. It has video tutorials for each of the types of projects that Descript can help with. And they're really short. They're also interactive, which I really, really appreciated. So you can practice the steps while the video is running. And there's also an extensive help section for all of the various features. So because this one I think is more extensive, they've done the legwork and made the help pages and all of the video tutorials that really make it sing. This one, when we talk about the uncanny valley and creepy, this is probably at the height of some of that. This is something where they can take your video and make it seem like you're looking at the camera. So it can edit the video so that you can see that that's what's happening. And you can see here, I'm trying to move some things in my Zoom interface. You can see there at the top, over to the right in that blue area, there's a woman looking off to the side. They have edited the video so that it appears as if she is looking at the camera. One of the things that they say, Descript says about this tool in their description, and this is a quote, "Eye contact is one of our AI power features that's so useful, it's almost not creepy." I think it's a little creepy. It's also really useful and something that probably when I record videos that I would take advantage of, because I know that I don't always look at the camera. So especially if you're looking at something at your screen, it can be very hard to look at the camera. So the fact that they can make this correction for you is I don't know, is it creepy? Is it not creepy? Tell me in the comments. How do you feel about AI eye contact correction? How do you feel about that one? So this tool also has a feature. Oh, absolutely creepy, says Megan. It can do more than just eye contact. Yes. I have a feeling Megan's been poking around there for already. Yes, it can do Descript can do a bunch of things. And actually, one of the things that you can see here, at least as listed on this screenshot, is a tool that also allows you to record your voice to be used in your AI project. So basically, it turns your voice into an AI property. I'm not sure how I feel about that. And I did not use it. That was something where I was not comfortable with. I think it's an interesting idea, a little too uncomfortable for me. Now, I think there's definitely some privacy implications here. Not necessarily for me, because I have been doing public speaking and training for a very long time, and I am everywhere. It is way too late to pull my voice back from any kind of AI. But I don't think I want to give it more fodder. How's that? But if it's something that you want to try, absolutely go for it. Now, this is another thing that has a trial. It does have a free plan, which allows you to do 1 export per month. And which is actually pretty good, which doesn't seem like it. At least it didn't initially to me. Again, I mentioned earlier, I've done a lot of training about online tools over the years. It's one of my favorite topics because there's so many neat things out there. But when we start talking about AI, it's really hard to get anything free. So I have to work really hard to show you things that are free from the get-go, at least in some way. So this one is not just a trial, I guess. It also is free. Again, we don't know if it's forever, but at least you can do this once a month and not have to pay for it. So that's something. This next one is U.AI. And when I think about this, I've begun to think of this one as kind of a one-stop shop in many ways. Although it does prominently feature here on the homepage the fastest way to build AI-powered apps, the most useful part of this tool is actually there are other tools inside of it. There's hundreds of pre-created tools in its showcase, which I'll talk about in just a minute. I want to show you this next thing here, where this actually kind of refers back to one of the things that I said at the very beginning when I was talking about kind of how we have now this big model or models like ChatGPT, Bard/Gemini, etc. But what they're doing here is they're turning that into a whole lot of more kind of niche applications. And this is where their showcase comes in. So the idea being that people can engage just with smaller parts of these bigger models and these do specific things. One of the things they say is they kind of are thinking along the lines of there's an AI for that. And I will tell you in my explorations, there definitely is an AI, it seems like, for almost everything. So this is just a little bit of their showcase. It's really, really big. So you're seeing just a part of it here. You can see there's things even for books on there, just scrolling by, and a whole lot of different categories of things there. Some are free. In fact, a fair number of them are free, which I found to be really interesting because they're built with this tool by U.AI. Remember, its primary thing that it advertised was creating new stuff. So people can do that, and then they put them in the showcase, and a lot of them are free. There are things where they are not always free, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to show you, I decided to give a try to this tool, which is their homework help tool, which is, again, free. And so at first it asked me what grade I was in. Of course, I'm not, so I lied, and I think I said I was in middle school. And I asked it to tell me what the causes of the fall of the Roman Empire were. And the information that I got, you can see that it's scrolling by there, seemed to be mostly accurate. One of the things that I discovered, though, when I started checking this a little further, you can see there's links down there. The links to the outside sources were broken. And what was interesting is that if I went to where those links took me, they didn't take me specifically anymore to where they originally went, but they were taking me to legitimate sources like Khan Academy. So what that makes me think is that at one point those URLs may have been correct. But it could be hallucinating. I'm not sure. There's no way for me, I think, to really tell. But the fact that it at least is referring to legitimate sources is a bonus. Now, would I tell a kid necessarily to use this? Well, first of all, AI and homework don't go together in theory, right? They're not supposed to, so probably not. Would it potentially help, though? Possibly. But again, this is one of literally hundreds of things that you could do that are in the Descript showcase. Remember at the beginning of this, I also told you, well, you can build your own. Yes, you can. This is what's called an integrated development environment, or IDE for the tech folks in there, and basically allows you to create custom AI tools. And it's supposed to be very straightforward. It doesn't require significant expertise. Anyone, this is their saying, not me, anyone can learn to develop new AIs by following simple tutorials and referencing the documentation. I have to think that at least some of what they're claiming is probably legit, simply because there are so many things in the showcase. And Megan says, question, what is the benefit to asking AI a research question versus Googling it? That's a very good question. So I think the main difference, at least with this particular little small part of Descript here, is that when I first opened it up, it asked me what grade I was in, which a chat GPT kind of a model probably would not do. You'd have to tell it. You might not think to say, hey, I'm only in the 7th grade. Explain it to me like I'm in 7th grade. Whereas it pulls that from you right away before it even starts trying to accumulate any information. So that's a really good question. And Cynthia says sometimes it helps when you don't know where to start with a question. Also a good point. So if you're creating something with Descript sorry, this isn't Descript, with U.AI. I'm starting to confuse them because they all end in .ai. So the typical development, according to U.AI, takes less than 30 minutes. Again, I have to think that there has to be some legitimacy to that just because of the sheer number of tools that are now available. But you can also configure what you create to be free, as you saw there in the animated GIF slide or two ago, or and provide a free tier, or you can also have a free tier and then require a paid monthly subscription. So you may have noticed in that screenshot where things were scrolling in the showcase that some of them were not free. And that's because you have the ability to monetize after this, which just goes back to what I was and have been saying, that people are attempting to monetize off of this kind of thing pretty fast. And that option is built in here to U.AI. Okay, speed round, which I'm going to make really speedy. So these are very quick things that you can investigate without quite so much detail. Not all of these are totally free and they may have limitations, so should be sure to check before you get too invested in these. For example, there are some that have file size limits, and some may make things that expire after some time. This is not just true of ones I might be showing you, but anything out there. Remember all those caveats I gave you at the beginning. There's a lot more now to check into with these tools, with AI tools, than we've had to deal with online tools in the past. That's just what it is right now. So this is next3books.com, which is a neat little reader's advisory tool. And so you can give it this information like I did. You can say, I want a novel, and you can say, hey, I want it to be lighthearted. And I could, say romance like I did here in this screenshot. And I was specifically looking for something in the style of Jenny Colgan. And it will give you 3 recommendations. And I'm going to let me go to the next screen here. So here's what it gave me. And when I first got these results, I have not been directly working in a library for some time, although I still read, obviously. So, but I'm not as familiar with authors as much as I used to be. And so when I saw this, I wasn't entirely sure if all of these were legit, but the site came up with some good suggestions. I wasn't familiar with the first series that was listed. I actually had to go check that out to see if it was hallucinating. Turned out, some of you are probably laughing at me, turns out it was not hallucinating. The links to the books on Amazon, I discovered, are not always correct. The books do exist, obviously, on Amazon. I don't know if that's because the URL changed, but it will take you to a place where you can get the book. An interesting thing that it does is if you buy it through here on Amazon, you can actually get a refund. I thought that was kind of an interesting little feature. I don't know how often that gets used. And so this is just a neat little reader's advisory tool. So remember, this is our speed round. This is recast.ai, which is a tool that converts articles into audio summaries. So it allows you to listen to summarized versions of articles instead of having to read them. So the idea is to make content consumption more convenient for you. And it does have both an app and a browser extension. So you can add your own articles, and then you can listen to the audio summary. In some ways, it's kind of like Murph, but remember, this is not just reading what it sees. It is making a summary of what you feed it. This is another image generator. Some of you were already familiar with Midjourney. I mentioned Viewtopia early on as making the images for the first part of my session today. This is ideogram.ai, and this does create images like Midjourney, but what this one is known for, and I actually don't have it here in this screenshot, and I should have, people will often use this one because it's known to be better at creating text. If you've ever used Midjourney or many of its kin, you've probably noticed if you try to include text in your image, it doesn't always end well. Sometimes it will add letters or just create things where you look at it and go, I have no idea what you were trying to accomplish there. This is not perfect, but Ideogram is known to be at least somewhat better at that. And I'm sure that has something to do with how these are trained, but I have no way to know that for sure. This is a neat tool. This is videohighlights.com. It helps to quickly summarize and take notes from videos. If I were a college student now, this would be something I would be absolutely using. So it uses AI technology to extract the key points, and you can highlight, you can timestamp, you can get screenshots, makes note taking a whole lot easier. You can also export your notes directly into, if you use either Notion or Readwise. I wasn't familiar with Readwise, but it can export to that. It is optimized for desktops. I believe it is a download more than anything. So in other words, it's actually not a download. Let me think about when I use this. It is not mobile friendly, I think, is what the answer is there. It's not that it doesn't work on desktops. It's browser based. I think that it doesn't have a mobile version, but again, not positive about that. I don't try these on my phone. Here's an example. This is from an E-Rate webinar that we did at our agency earlier. It's financial 2024. I guess it's the end of the last year. So you can see here what it did. It started summarizing things, and I think that's very useful. Here's another tool. This is called Runway Magic AI Tools. And in some ways, it seems like a whole lot of other AI tools designed to create images or video, which it can do. You'll notice there's a lot of overlap in AI tools because many of them are trying to accomplish the same thing and maybe do it better than their competitors. But what makes Runway at least a little bit unique is that it focuses on transforming existing images rather than creating new images. It's doing things to images you already have, which I think probably eliminates most of the ethical questions around AI art. So let me show you an example here. I gave it, come on, PowerPoint, you can do it. Okay, there we go. So I gave it this image and asked it to do this with it, and to make it animated in this case. And you can see some of the options that you have there. And this is what it did with it. So it basically took a 2D image and kind of made it 3D. At the very least, it gave it some motion. So again, just something kind of cute that you can do, not a big investment there. Yes, we saw that PowerPoint. There we go. So here again, it's got a free tier. It's limited, and you get an idea here. It's not tremendously expensive. If you decide you want to use it, remember, it does more than just what you saw there. Again, not trying to sell you on anything, just to help you understand what the possibilities are. Now, one of the things I told you I wanted to look at with you today towards the end was things that may or may not blow your mind. And I don't know what Jason showed you yesterday, so this may or may not be new to you, but I know that when I first saw these, that these were disconcerting is a polite way to put it. And this is from TikTok. This is someone I follow on TikTok, and I'm just going to play this for you.
All right, this one is actually sick. Estaba esperando una herramienta de IA como esta durante un tiempo, pero finalmente está aquí. So obviously right now I'm talking normally, pero si te das cuenta ahora mismo estoy hablando en español. 现在我正在说中文 أتحدث بالعربية. Now unfortunately I don't actually speak any of these languages, but this tool übersetzt ihre Videos in jede gewünschte Sprache. The site itself is called HeyGen, and to get to the translator, you want to go to labs.heygen.com/guest/video translator. Creador de contenido, es genial hacer videos para personas en cualquier país. 누구와든 개인적으로 이야기할 수 있음으로 멋지다. Actually pretty close to be able to do this live, so you could like video chat with someone in another language. Or you could put on like an AR headset and have conversaciones en persona con alguien de otro idioma. 该网站接受您的视频，在不同语言中制作 idioma y usa IA para sincronizar tus labios con esa voz. Really hard to tell what's real lately, so just beware of this. All right, this one is actually sick.
So how did you feel about that one? And by the way, the URL that he gave in the video is not correct anymore. I had to go find the new one, and that one is on the slide. How do you feel about HeyGen? I was totally creeped out when I saw this, because this is happening, and not only is it translating, which is, I don't want to say it's everyday thing, but it's certainly more common maybe than it's been a year or so ago. But what it's doing here is that it's also changing his mouth while he's talking. It's changing his mouth to match the words in the language that he's being translated into. That is pretty crazy to me. HeyGen is probably at the top of the AI game right now. Yes, and Megan says it matched his voice. So that also makes it absolutely nuts. I thought about this in terms of libraries, and for libraries that maybe have more international demographics or differently speaking, language speaking demographics. You know, if you have a big Spanish population as an example, imagine being able to take your library videos and translate them like that, where it looks like you're actually speaking that language. That's crazy to me. And HeyGen does more than that, because as crazy as that is, it is not the only thing that HeyGen does. So let me see if I PowerPoint. There we go. It doesn't like it when I've got videos. It has trouble moving on. So this is this is, I believe, one of the founders, I'm not positive about that, from HeyGen, talking about something else that HeyGen does. So watch this.
Hey guys, I'm Joshua, co-founder and CEO of HeyGen. Let me show you these two videos and you tell me which one is AI generated. In the early days of computer programming, a significant historical anecdote is known as Grace Hopper
Oops, sorry.
and the bug. In 1947 at Harvard University. Alright, it may sound crazy, but both videos are generated with my AI avatar. You can create your own if you follow the instruction below. It will only take you 5 minutes to get a high fidelity avatar, same as mine.
So how many of you are ready to be an AI avatar? What do you think? What do you think about this one? I think Megan's got a sobbing emoji. So when we talk about deep fakes in the news, this is the kind of thing that can create those for sure. Would I use this personally? I'm not ready to go there. But the fact that HeyGen is doing this and making it publicly available for better and for worse. Kimberly says, yikes. Juanetta says, not yet for me and especially my husband. Okay, so probably most of us aren't ready to go here. But again, just the fact that this is out there.
Hey guys.
Come on, PowerPoint. It always wants to start the video up again. So this is from HeyGen, and this is specific to that option or capability to create an AI avatar. In this case, you can see I prompted it for a female librarian with glasses. I was going as stereotypical as I possibly could to see what it would come up with. And then you can see it gave me some options there. Like, okay, you can save this also if you have a HeyGen library, and you can pull it up and you can choose to make a video from it, which you can choose to do either in landscape or portrait orientation. So this is actually, there's so many things that these do. So this is still HeyGen, but it's not actually what you just saw with the co-founder and making a digital av of himself. This is something where you can create one from a prompt. This is not, this is a different feature. So sorry about that. Didn't mean to mix people up. And you can even refresh down here if you want to regenerate, if you didn't like what you got. So maybe, I don't know, some of you might be more comfortable with this, where you're creating an imaginary person to actually be your avatar and to say things. And speaking of saying things, once you've created this avatar, you can also give it some script. And then what does that look like, or what does that sound like? So here's the script that I gave it. And let's see what that looks and sounds like.
Welcome to Laura Solomon's AI Tools webinar.
Okay, so what I found out after I gave it that text is, because I was using the free version, it was very, very short. This is very much a trial. And because HeyGen, of all the tools that I'm showing you today, is probably the most expensive, which probably doesn't surprise anyone. But you can see there, it took basically a photo, it made the mouth move in much the same way you saw when that guy was talking about HeyGen originally on TikTok, and you can hear it read. So I would feel more comfortable with this, where I've got an imaginary person saying my words, more so than I would feel comfortable with this is a digital version of myself. That one kind of freaks me out entirely. So as far as price goes,
Welcome.
No, PowerPoint. There's not a free version at all beyond what you saw, which is just a few seconds. Basically, that if there's a one-stop shop here for prices, it's $48 a month. And for some libraries, that may still be worth it, maybe not for smaller libraries. But anything bigger than that, you're going to have to go to enterprise. You're going to have to ask about it. Clearly, this company knows where the customers are, and it's probably not us. So I don't demonstrate this to convince you to buy it. I'm not trying to convince anybody into any of these things today. But this company is got some pretty high level tech going on, some pretty high level AI options happening. So it knows that it can charge for those, and it's going to do so accordingly. That's not, I think, surprising for any of us. Now, I also want to spend a little time on where you can find out about some of these things, because you might think that AI is everywhere. I don't see how anyone could not think that at this point. In fact, I just saw the name of a session. It's going to be happening here in Ohio. I think it's called "If Someone Says AI to Me One More Time." And I just laughed. I thought that is so absolutely true. But there's lots of places where you can find out. I get a whole bunch of newsletters specifically that tell me about AI, what's happening in the world of AI, tools that are happening in AI. So I want to share those with you if you're interested in drinking maybe just a little bit from the AI news fire hose. And the first one I want to show you here is AI Tool Report. This one is not just tools, although that's what I'm showing you here on the screen. This one also includes AI news, which is changing all the time. It really is. Megan was mentioning earlier some of the things that have been happening in terms of poisoning data and legislation. It's changing moment by moment, which is one of the reasons that I have more AI tool newsletters than I do any other kind of tech, because this is changing so fast that trying to stay on top of it, I don't want to say impossible, but it could very easily be a full-time job. So this also includes a section to help you get better AI prompts, to do prompts better, which I thought was kind of a unique feature. And I think it's the only newsletter that I get that does this. The AI tool report also is actually an extension of this, which is, it calls itself the homepage of AI. There's other things like this. I think I'm going to show you at least one in a minute. But they're attempting to catalog all of these AI tools. And this is pretty nifty in some ways because it allows you to filter, there we go, by different criteria. This is probably the most valuable feature of this, you want to call it a database, because although the initial screen allowed you to sort by the purpose of the tool, being able to sort by the pay model and what features it has, like for example, does it have a mobile app? Do you have to sign up for it? Those kinds of things. You can sort by that. That's a pretty valuable set of facets to be able to sort by. So keeping up with new AI tools just in general is kind of like whack-a-mole, because they're coming out at such a fast rate that, you know, with the companies and the people experimenting with them and monetizing them, it's just nuts. There's this huge race to monetize. So you can see here, you do have the option to sort by free, at least for the ones that are listed here. This is the results of my search there on AI Tool Reports database for productivity related tools, and I filtered for free. So there are definitely things out there. One of the things you'll notice on AI Tools database is that although star ratings are featured pretty prominently there, you're going to notice that almost all of them say 0. Almost none of the listings have been rated yet. This is how new everything is. It's not just that AI Tool Reports database is new, although it is for sure. Remember, some of these probably appeared literally last week. There's just not been the time needed to get real feedback about these. That will probably come with time, I'm guessing. So don't assume that 0 stars means anything at this point. Another one that I get is future tools, which I get, I think, every Wednesday. This one specifically is about tools. I don't think it covers other kinds of things like prompts or AI news like future tools, or sorry, like AI Tool Report did. So easy to get these confused. So this person also has a database, and they are trying to add about 100 different tools a week to this database. That's crazy to me. And so there are at least 50 or 60 things, he says, coming out weekly in AI news. He's feeding you. I guess there is some news here because I'm looking at my notes. I don't always remember the differences. But he's feeding you at least 3 or 4 of those. Again, trying not to have people overwhelmed by the scope of everything at once. Here is future tools tool database. This kind of setup seems to be becoming more common because different entities are attempting to catalog all of this. For those of you who are around in the 90s, you may remember when different things like Yahoo, for example, were trying to catalog the internet into different categories and subcategories. We're seeing that now with AI tools. That probably seems a little more doable, just because we're not talking about the entire web, but it's still a pretty ambitious kind of an undertaking. But again, you may find some things here that you may not find in other places or in other database. I searched for generative AI and free, just trying to see what I could make with AI, and I got these. And this actually, I guess, has been around a little longer. You can see over on the right of each of these listings, there are arrows with some numbers, so they have been upvoted at least. So this probably has a little more, I don't know if I want to say cachet, but it's certainly at least people have used some of these, which is very helpful in my book. This is by far my favorite, and that is the Neuron. I get this every morning. I look forward to it, whereas the other ones is like, oh, I've just got to plow through it. They're very valuable, don't get me wrong, but the Neuron is specifically written for the layperson and to be funny. How often do you get actual tech news that's meant to just be tongue-in-cheek? The Neuron focuses specifically on AI news. It does often list some tools, but it's really a nice digest of all the news. There's tools, research, things that are going on, like legislatively, that are happening. For example, again, Megan talking about poisoning AI data. All of that kind of thing ends up in the Neuron as well. And this is probably the most down-to-earth newsletter that I get. And if you only want to get one of these because you've had enough, this is the one that I recommend. Another way to go for those of you who are TikTok fans, I personally spend way too much time on TikTok, so this is how I find out about some of these things. There are some great creators on TikTok. Some of these are also, I think, on Instagram. Thunder Keck, I know, is on Instagram as well. He was the man you saw showing off HeyGen's language translation option just a little bit ago. But all of these provide ongoing updates with what's happening and what's available in AI. So things to remember from today. First of all, remember all those things that I mentioned at the beginning, and some of those you've seen in action as we've gone through this, like pricing, for example, accuracy. And caveats also include things like data privacy, like licensing, all of these things that are still being hammered out legislatively in the courts, just in general. Your mileage may vary, and this has a lot to do with your prompts and how good your prompts are or aren't. I know that I have written some really bad prompts, and sometimes I'll see things that other people have done and be like, oh, clearly I am not going to be, even though I'm a librarian, clearly I'm not going to be a prompt engineer anytime in the near future. I'm just terrible at it. If you get better at it, you're going to get better results. If nothing else today, this third thing is probably the thing you will take away, and that is that the landscape is changing minute by minute, moment by moment. It's very hard to keep up with this, and things that are seem sturdy and stable now may not be by next week. Lastly, get out there and play, because that with anything, the only way to really learn it, to really understand it, is to do it. I can tell you all day about these tools and maybe pique your interest, but that doesn't mean it's going to mean as much to you as actually going and getting your hands in it, so to speak. So lots and lots and lots. So I'm happy to take any questions. I know we have a few minutes left. I don't know if there were ones that I missed. If you would like to ask any now, please do, but I'd also like to ask you a question in return. I'd like to ask you, and please put your answers into the chat, which of these tools did you find the most exciting, and which of these did you find to be the one that bothered you the most? And I use that word bother very widely with a broad scope, I guess, because bothered can mean different things. Did it creep you out? Did you feel uncomfortable? Do you think there were privacy implications? So what excited you and what bothered you? Please do me a favor and put that into the chat, because I'm always interested to see how people react to some of these. Remember, again, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I have no investment in any of these, but I'm always interested to know how people in libraries, what they think of this. And Megan says, all AI bothers me, LOL. Megan, I don't think you're alone. I'm up to my hips in this for sure. And the more I know, like HeyGen, for example, the scarier some of it can get, but I'm trying to keep the scare level for myself down, if nothing else, because it's very easy to get overwhelmed and creeped out. Things are scrolling, so hang on a second. Cynthia says, excited by Descript, especially for the screen recording feature. Emily says, I'm bothered by HeyGen, but will also be using it to send to my Spanish tutor this afternoon in order to impress them with my progress. Okay, Emily, I won't tell. Wow. I don't know where you're at in your Spanish learning, Emily, but I'm going to guess your Spanish tutor may not be taken in if it's too good. But that's hilarious. Sylvia says, AI takes away the creativity. I like writing the text. Fair enough. I like writing text too, Sylvia. I've written, some books and other kinds of publications, and I write a blog and blah, blah, blah. So I think that I would continue. This is for me personally. I would continue to do that. That's not something I would ask an AI to do. That's not me. But I did like Descript because it could do the captions. It's funny, I've written books about social media, but the day-to-day writing of captions drives me bonkers. So when I saw that, I was like, yay! That's why it was the first thing I asked it. To me, it's just really tedious. But Sylvia, do what you want, whatever works for you. Juanetta says, I like the ones that will make my work easier to write program copy and advertisement. I'm going to guess you probably mean, actually, that would be copy.ai. I told you I'm constantly confusing these. The ones not too interested in are the avatars. However, I think making the avatar to actually conduct the program might be in our future. Wow, I don't know. That's an interesting idea. I'm not sure. If people are really uncomfortable on camera, I could definitely see that as something that people would do. Be like, I'm not going to show up, but here's my avatar. Maybe I could definitely see people doing that. I don't think you're wrong, Monetta. Lots of different reactions here, which is usually what I get. And there's a spectrum. And as you probably noticed throughout this today, I myself am on both ends of that spectrum, depending on what I'm looking at. At one point I'm like, this is really cool, yay, copy.ai, and other things like HeyGen, I'm going, yeah, I didn't need to know about that one. I think that there's going to be a lot of that, and not just from us in libraries. It's going to be everyone. I think we're all going through these growing pains of AI, just like we did with the internet. I've been around for a long time. I'm old. And I remember when, having porn in libraries was a huge deal, huge. And, libraries were potentially losing funding, and it was in the news all the time. So it's growing pains. Hopefully we'll get to the end of this and things will be better. No guarantees. There's a question, will we get the list of all these products and the URLs? I think that they're going to be sending you the slides, a PDF of the slides, which will include all of this.
Hi, yes, Laura, we will, and we'll be sending all of that out, and in the days to come, as we kind of get it packet out to everyone with CEUs and everything like that. And Laura, I think this is a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. I think you can see in the chat that there are so many different tools out there that folks are interested in, from the sort of useful to the little spooky and all that with the avatars. But all of these, I think, are incredibly useful and probably will become more so in the future. Is it's like I think in libraries we always feel like we're asked to do 3 things in the space of time that usually take 1. And today take to do 1 thing or 5 things when the time it takes to do 1. And cutting down that time will always, I think, be of help. Although I think maybe we shouldn't have to do that sometimes, but I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon in the world. Laura, I think thank you so much. I think this was a wonderful presentation. And I appreciate you coming on to share all this information with us. To everyone else, this will close out this session, and we've got the next one at 1 p.m. Remember, we've got Emily Sachs, the workforce strategist for neighborhood library services at the Pratt Library, doing a session on libraries lifting lives, resources for job and career help. So please join us at 1 p.m. Laura, again, thank you for an amazing presentation and all this information, all these tools. I think it was fantastic. And I look forward to seeing everybody at 1 o'clock. Thank you.